All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're starting with a mystery that kicked off on a freezing cold Ohio morning. Picture this. It's 6:42 a.m. on a Tuesday, you're walking out to your car, completely weighed down by your own personal struggles, and you suddenly find something tucked right under your windshield wiper.
And written on it are these exact 6 words. Please don't let my dad give up. I mean, wow. It's a total gut-wrenching plea, scribbled in messy handwriting. There's nobody around, no clue who wrote it, and the guy who found it, he had absolutely no idea how those 6 words were about to literally turn his life upside down.
So the guy holding that note is Daniel Carter. Now, Daniel was carrying some heavy grief himself. He had lost his wife just 3 months prior. In fact, on this exact Tuesday morning, he'd actually made the massive decision to sell his house and just leave Ohio for good, pack up his sorrow, and get out of town. But holding this piece of paper, he's suddenly desperate to solve this heartbreaking mystery. Who was this kid, and who was his dad?
Now here's the crazy part. Right at the bottom of the note was a tiny, almost hidden clue. In really small letters it said, "He parks here every morning." Well, that one sentence sent Daniel straight into detective mode. He checks the coffee shop across the street, asks the barista if she's seen a 12 or 13-year-old kid hanging around. Nothing. So he just has to wait. And sure enough, the very next day, a second note miraculously appears. This one says, "He doesn't know I'm watching."
So Daniel waits it out. And at 7:05 a.m., a frightened 13-year-old named Evan finally shows up. He's bundled up in this huge, oversized blue jacket, lugging a heavy backpack. When Daniel gently talks to him about the notes, the poor kid just breaks down in tears. He spills this devastating truth. His mom passed away the year before, and his dad just hasn't been the same. The truly chilling part? Evan says his dad keeps talking about wanting to be with her, and this 13-year-old knew exactly what that meant. His dad was ready to give up on life.
Without missing a beat, Daniel drives Evan back to a small house at the end of a quiet street. They walk inside and Daniel finds Evan's dad just sitting on the edge of his bed. His eyes are completely empty, he's physically shaking, and he just utters this incredibly profound, crushing confession, "I don't know how to do this anymore."
And you guys, this right here, this perfectly captures the absolute power of true empathy. Because Daniel didn't toss out empty platitudes or unsolicited advice. He didn't try to just fix it. He literally just sat down next to this broken man and said, "I know." He opened up and admitted his own wife had died just 3 months ago. In that quiet room, Daniel showed them they fundamentally weren't alone. Psychologists actually call this mirroring. Sometimes when you're in that deep, dark place, you don't need a solution. You just need someone to validate your exact pain. And with that, the father finally broke down and cried, just holding his son.
But the story doesn't end there. Daniel didn't just have this emotional moment and take off. He stayed. Slowly but surely, things started to shift because Daniel stepped up with these practical, everyday acts of connection. He stayed for dinner that first night, came back the next day, helped Evan with his homework, even fixed a busted fence outside their house. They started taking walks together, just small, consistent steps that built this incredible bridge of support, which eventually turned into shared Sunday dinners every single week.
Now don't forget, Daniel's house is still on the market. He's still planning to sell everything and bolt. Well, one evening, Evan realizes this and hands Daniel a third folded-up note from his pocket. Daniel opens it, and it's an absolute gut punch of a question. It says, "You saved my dad. Who's going to save you?"
Man, that realization hit Daniel like a ton of bricks. It totally reframed how he saw moving forward. He looks at his packed-up house, he looks at Evan, and it finally clicks. You know, maybe healing isn't about running away. It's not about somehow magically forgetting the person you lost. It's really about finding a genuine, powerful reason to just keep living.
Let's actually look at how this built up over time. From that first cryptic note on a Tuesday to meeting Evan on Wednesday. Fast forward 6 months later, Daniel completely pulled his house off the market and started volunteering. Evan's dad got into professional therapy, and Evan even went back to playing baseball. And then 1 full year later, Daniel finds one last note on his windshield. 4 simple words, "Thank you for staying." It completely sealed this incredible transformation for all 3 of them, all because of a note on a windshield.
All right, moving on to our next section, the bracelet of determination. 12. That is the age of a kid named Jake, just 12 years old, standing outside a small grocery store in the bustling city of Chicago, day after day, morning after morning.
Jake was out there hustling, selling these handmade bracelets, and it was tough. He's getting ignored by busy commuters, some people are even flat out laughing at him, but despite all that rejection and ridicule, Jake just kept smiling. He pushed through.
He even stood out there on this miserable, freezing, rainy evening, absolutely refusing to pack it up and go home. Eventually, this older gentleman stops in the rain and asks Jake the exact question we're all wondering. Why do you keep coming back when nobody's buying anything? Jake looks down and delivers this incredibly mature, deeply motivational response. He says, "Because my mom needs medicine, and I promised her I wouldn't give up." That simple, raw honesty, it completely stopped the old man in his tracks. He buys one bracelet, but then he looks at the tiny piece of jewelry, looks back at Jake and asks, "How much for all of them?" Yeah, he wanted every single one, and right before he leaves, the man hands Jake a business card. Turns out he's the owner of a massive local company. He tells Jake to come see him the very next day. Why? Because Jake possessed something you literally cannot buy with money: pure, unadulterated determination. Jake never had to sell bracelets on that street again. Armed with that unyielding grit, he grew up to become a wildly successful businessman. And guess what? Sitting right there on his desk was that very first bracelet, a permanent reminder to never ever quit.
Which brings us to our final section: small actions, massive impact.
When we put these stories side by side, we're really looking at two foundational pillars of human resilience. On one side, Daniel's story teaches us that healing often comes from stepping outside our own grief to connect with someone else's pain. Empathy is a literal lifeline. And on the flip side, Jake's story proves that relentless grit, even when you're completely ignored by the world, builds a rock-solid foundation for lifelong success. You really don't need everyone to believe in you, you just need the determination to keep showing up. And here's the beautiful part: your quiet resilience doesn't just build your own future, it's often the exact thing that inspires someone else to keep going.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to chew on. Whether it's leaving a quick note on a windshield to ask for help or deciding to buy a handmade bracelet from a kid in the pouring rain, what small choice will you make today to refuse to give up on humanity? Really think about that. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.